for this session, so you'll see that pop up on your screen. And thank you for joining our series. Today we have a presenter from Arches, Julie Aguilera. She will be sharing time management tips for your success. It's great to implement these now too at the beginning of the semester so that you don't feel like you need to catch up later on as the semester progresses. And Julie, whenever you're ready.
All right, Denise, thank you so much for that introduction. I love the way you pronounce my last name. It's nice to meet everyone. My name is Julie Aguilera. I am the learning specialist with the Arches program. So I do see a couple of familiar faces. So it's nice to see some of you in here. Today, we are going to be doing a workshop on planning for your success, time management strategies. So Denise, if you wouldn't mind just sharing the PowerPoint with the group today, we can go ahead and get started. For this workshop, I kind of want to make it a little bit interactive, and I just kind of want to get a sense of where everyone is kind of coming from when it comes to time management. So what I would like you all to do is, if Denise, if you wouldn't mind changing to the next slide, we're actually going to be using a tool called Padlet. So what I'm going to be asking you all to do is to follow or navigate to the QR code listed there. So if you have a smartphone, you should be able to use it. If you don't, I'm going to put the link in the chat for everybody. Sorry, put this in here. I'm going to put the link in the chat for everyone so you can navigate there. And then once you're actually on the page itself, you should be able to see our little Padlet here. So as everyone is kind of joining the Padlet and adding in, I just kind of want to get a little bit of a sense of where everyone's thoughts are when it comes to time management. So I'd like us to answer the first question, which is, what does time management mean to you? So you can post your comments in, and I can start seeing some in. They are anonymous, so you don't have to worry about other people reading them, but you can take a look at them. So as people are coming in, you can feel free to post. And as you're answering question 1, you can also go ahead and actually also answer question 2. So I also want you to answer, why is having effective time management important to you? So for those of you that just joined us, we are using Padlet to be able to answer some of these questions here. So in the chat, I will post the link in again for everyone to be able to access this. So you can feel free to navigate that there. Okay, so let's start kind of taking a look at some of the ones that are coming in so far. So for question 1, as far as like, what does time management mean to you? The first one is staying efficient, completing all tasks in a timely manner, being able to juggle between school and work, being able to balance school and personal work, being able to get things done in a timely manner and organized manner. So I'm seeing a lot of kind of trends here. So balance is usually like a big one that I find that most students and most people want to have when it comes to time management or when it comes to a schedule. So I'm not surprised by that. And also just being able to prioritize certain things that make you happy while doing important things. So again, everything related to balance. So with question 2, with why is having effective time management important to you? I can already see a couple of the answers in here. So when I have effective time management, I'm able to have time for social activities and separate my work with my personal life. Definitely. You can stay organized, you can be stress-free, overall that'll benefit your mental health. It helps you get organized, helps you stay organized and avoid becoming too stressed and with everything that you have to do. So that's definitely true. So I definitely appreciate all of you that managed to get your responses in. I'll wait a little bit to see some of the additional responses that come in, and we can kind of share some of those. So let me go ahead and stop sharing this. And Denise, if you wouldn't mind sharing slide number 3 with the group. So it's good to kind of get a gauge of essentially of what you all consider when it comes to time management. Official definition when it comes to time management is it is the process of planning and exercising conscious control of the time that you spend on specific activities, especially to increase your effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity. So a lot of the answers that I did see from question one and question two all relate to those pieces. So essentially, time management is going to hopefully help you do the things that you want to do in a more efficient way, which means you get to get your work done in less time and you can maximize the time that you spend on the things that are important to you. So Denise, if we move on to the next slide, we can see some of the importance of time management. So some of the ways that time management can actually help you is it can actually increase your productivity. So again, getting more things done in the day. It can help you with having more energy each day. So if you're able to hopefully have a more balanced schedule where you're breaking things up, you're hopefully not overloading yourself where you're feeling burnt out by the end of the day and you have no energy to do other things. It can also help with reducing stress because if you plan out the things that you need to do, hopefully you're able to anticipate things as they come and maybe avoid some procrastination. So you're not just left like last minute trying to scramble and to get things done. And you're able to do the things that you want to do. And hopefully, it'll also help you have better relationships with the people in your life. So, if you are constantly stressed and if you don't make time for people, it's going to be hard to maintain and build relationships with others. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing that I find that most students like is that it helps them with their self esteem. Sometimes it can feel like time management or time is controlling us versus us controlling our time. So being able to feel like you can do the things that you need to do in a timely manner really kind of help with just making you feel like you have more control in your life and that you're, capable of doing some of these pieces. So if we move on to the next slide, Denise, we can kind of identify some of the next pieces here. So essentially, time management has three main ideas or three main areas. So when it comes to time management, one of the three big things that you really have to be mindful of and to be made aware of is you need to know what you want. So knowing what you want means that you need to have goals. So developing those goals, identifying those goals are really important because you're not going to know how to manage your time if you don't know what's important to you. When it comes to how to get it, that's the second main idea. So time management is actually a way to be able to accomplish the things that you want. You can't really just wing it when it comes to your goals. Sometimes maybe we can with certain things like little micro tasks, but for the most part, you kind of can't wing college, right? So you have to plan things out, plan classes that you take, register for things. So there's a lot of organizing, prioritizing that is involved. So time management is really a helpful way to do that. And then the biggest one, which I heard from most of the answers that I saw at the beginning of the presentation, was balance. So the way that you know that you have successful time management is if you feel you have a balance between the different priorities and the different important areas related to your life. So if you're able to feel like you're able to dedicate enough time to school, to work, to your personal life and relationships, more likely you're going to feel a lot happier and you're going to feel successful. But success does mean different things for everybody. So success isn't the same thing for everyone. So that's where knowing what you want is really important. So if we move on to the next slide, we're going to talk about how to figure out these different pieces. So if one of the main pieces to time management is knowing what you want, then we have to figure out and identify those. So on the next slide, one of the recommendations that I have for all my students, especially if you're a student that's working with like either EOP or ARCHES or RAMP, I'm sure everyone has talked to you about SMART goals. So if you click on the slide, Denise, you can see that SMART goals are the first thing that pop up. So SMART goals are a really effective and efficient way of creating goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Usually most students create goals that are a little bit vague or ambiguous. So Denise, if you switch to the next slide, we can see some examples of typical goals that we normally see. So even though it's good to have an idea of what your goals are and what you want to accomplish, it's actually more efficient and more effective to actually have specific goals in mind of what you want. So if your idea is that you want to get a good education, that might not always be really helpful because it's not going to help you identify what specifically it is that you want to accomplish. So a better goal is to follow the SMART goal method, which is to create a specific goal. And a specific goal is going to have these core pieces, which are pieces that are specific, that are measurable, and they're going to force you to think about and reflect on how these goals actually connect to your overall branching goals or to just whatever is important to you. So in our training today, or in our workshop today, we are actually going to have you work on creating some SMART goals. So in the chat, I am going to be linking a link to a PDF document. So this document is actually a fillable document that you can actually fill out on your own, and you can create SMART goals using it. You can actually print it also once you've completed it, and you can kind of post it somewhere so that way you have it someplace to review. But one of the things that I do want to just kind of go over is just what exactly these SMART goals are and how to kind of break them down a little bit. So I'm going to be sharing my screen, and if we take a look at the worksheet that I'm sharing with you all, we can see that there are actually some specific steps and key areas when it comes to creating a SMART goal. So SMART goals actually force us to reflect and to think about what our actual specific goals are, and they give you some time and space to really think and plan out how you're going to accomplish these goals. So like I mentioned earlier, a vague goal can be something between like what's you consider to be like, I want to get a good education. But another goal that I usually hear about from a lot of my students, especially around this time, is I want to find an internship. So if your goal is to find an internship, that's great, but that doesn't really give you a timeline of what that's actually going to look like and how realistic these different pieces are. So the SMART goal method is going to force us to have to think through these pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have us go through a walkthrough of SMART goals. And then what I'm going to have you do is as I'm going through them, I want to encourage you to fill out your own. And then once you're done, we can kind of share as a group. You can like unmute yourself, or you can put it in the Padlet. So I will link the Padlet again, and you can identify like what your goals are. So if you're more comfortable typing, you can do that. You can also type it into the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and you want to communicate what your SMART goal is, you can do that too. But essentially, we're going to kind of walk through how to create one. So when it comes to a SMART goal, the first step that we want to get to is whether or not is the S step, which is the specific piece to SMART goals. So some of the questions that we have to consider when we're first coming up with a goal is, what do we want to accomplish? Who needs to be included? And when do you want to do this by? And why is this a goal for you? So in the situation where this student wants to find an internship, this student wants to accomplish this because they want to, well, what they actually want to do is they want to research different internships programs. They need to do this with an internship advisor from their major or their college because they're required to do this in order to graduate. And they want to do this by the winter break because they're trying to register for classes in spring semester because there's like an internship class related to this. So this is how we can kind of make this initial goal into something more specific, is we have to identify what these pieces are and what we want to accomplish. Once we've identified what the specific components to the goal is, then we want to think about how we can actually measure whether or not the goal is happening or not. So a big recommendation that I have is if you have a goal, try to break it up into smaller deadlines, smaller pieces, and smaller components. So in this situation, this person wants to research internships. They want to research at least 5 internships and identify them by November 5th. Ideally, they want to start applying for these by November 5th, but they want to at least identify 5. Next, they're going to need to get approval from their advisor. So they're going to have to set up a meeting with them, and they're going to have to meet with them before the start of the winter break. So this person's going to know if they successfully accomplished their goal, if they've identified those 5 internships, if they've gotten approval from their advisor, and if they met with their advisor before the winter break. So those are some measurable pieces to the goals. They're specific timelines or milestones to be able to accomplish them. And then next, with the A piece, with achievability, it's do I have the skills required to achieve this goal? And if I don't, how can I actually get those skills? And what's the motivation to actually get this goal? So the amount of effort that's required for you to get this goal has to be equal to the amount of work usually that you're going to put into it. So in this situation, this person identifies that they are not really sure how to maybe go about finding an internship, but maybe they're going to work with the career center and work with an advisor to get help on how to find one. They do know that this is important to them because they need this class in order to graduate. And being a part of internship is going to help them to develop some soft skills. So either like communication skills or learn how to work in an office. And for them, it's going to be worth it because they'll hopefully be paid for their internship experience and they'll also gain some experience. So that's how we can make it achievable. And then when it comes to relevant, it's why are you doing this? So why are you setting this goal now? And how does it align to your overall objectives? So when it comes to the relevant part, this person identifies that they're a junior. It's going to help them because they need to graduate, so they need to take this specific class. And their overall goal is to graduate from CPP and find a job afterwards. So getting an internship is going to help them with that goal and help them get to that place. And then the last one, which is T, is what's the time, what's the deadline, and how realistic is it? So for them, it's they need to get approval from their advisor before the start of the winter break to enroll in the internship class in the spring. So that's their deadline. But some of their deadlines for their internship might depend on the internship itself. So you can see that they actually put some like flexibility in there just because you're not really sure what the specific deadlines are until you research some of these programs. So going back to the first initial goal is I want to find an internship. We can now see that the student developed a SMART goal. So they will research one internship program every week until November 1st. They will pick the top 5 internships they want to apply to by November 5th, and they will schedule to meet with their internship advisor before the Thanksgiving break to get approval, and they'll start applying for internships before the start of winter break. So you can see how this goal is much more specific, much more measurable. It gives deadlines and urgency to it as well. So it's not just a vague goal of like, I want to accomplish this. It actually sets specific timelines to be able to be measured for those pieces. So this is how SMART goals can really help you to define a little bit more of like what you want to accomplish and what you hope to achieve. So before we kind of move on, I'm just kind of curious to know for any of you, if you have any questions specifically about SMART goal creation, or if you have any questions about the process. I know SMART goals can be a little bit kind of difficult to process and they require some reflection. So just wanted to check in to see if anybody had any questions about the SMART goal method. And you can also put it in the chat too, if you feel comfortable. So you can either unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything coming into the chat, which is hopefully telling me that you all are understanding it fairly well. So since we had you kind of look at the SMART goal tool, like I said, I do want you all to create your own. So what I am going to ask is in the link that I shared with you, I do want you all to try to create your own. So I'm going to give you all a couple of minutes to be able to draft out your own SMART goal. And then what we can do is we can share it with the group. So I'm going to paste it in here again, just for some of the individuals that just joined us. We are creating SMART goals at the moment. So you can access the link here and you can develop your own. So I'll give you all a couple minutes to be able to work on this. And then once we're done, we can kind of share it out as a group. So for those of you that have identified a SMART goal and maybe don't want to unmute yourself, you can put it in the question 3 into the Padlet in here. Okay, oh, you're not able to, so sorry, Jane, I see your message that you're not able to access the worksheet. Okay, let me try to share this one with you again. If for some reason it doesn't work, then I can try to see if I can, oops, sorry, I can see if I can try to share it with the group at the end here. But hopefully you're able to access it. And then as far as our Padlet goes, if you are, okay, perfect. So as far as our Padlet goes, if you do want to access our Padlet to answer question 3 on here, if you want to post your goal there, you can include it in. So I'm going to put that in the chat too. So you can use Padlet in there to communicate. So I see a couple of them that are kind of coming in here as well. So, okay, perfect. So before I kind of share out question 3, does anyone want to unmute themselves and share their SMART goal? If not, I can just kind of read some of the ones that are coming in with question 3.
I can share a SMART
Yeah,
goal of mine.
thank you, Adeli.
So yeah, so a SMART goal of mine is having a list of graduate schools that I want to apply to by the end of this year.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's fantastic. So with the SMART goal method, right? So it sounds like you want to accomplish it by this year. Do you have a specific deadline then of when you want to make sure that you're accomplishing some of these pieces? Like, does that mean by the end of December? Does that mean that you have to apply by like November? Because I know graduate school applications are coming up.
Yeah, so I would have to start applying. So I want to go to vet school, so I would have to start applying uh December when applications open, I believe. So then I plan to have like my schools already set in mind by November,
Mm-hmm.
December, early December, the latest.
Mm-hmm. So like when it comes to some of your applications, have you gotten a chance to research the graduate schools that you want to do?
Yeah, I have. I just haven't made a definite decision on which schools I'm eyeing towards. So I think
Mhm.
that's the goal of mine, is to really sit down and think about what schools will best suit me instead of looking
Mhm.
into it all.
Yeah, that's great. So that's with your SMART goal method, right? That's a way to be able to break that down is by, the November deadline that you set for yourself. That's when you'll identify some of the programs that you're interested in. And then ideally, if you've already identified them, then it's when do you need to apply to those by? So a big recommendation also with the SMART goal method is it usually is helpful to, if you have some of these big goals, like when it comes to graduate school process, it's working backwards. So it's like, what's the deadline to submit those application and how much time am I going to actually have to be able to get some of these pieces done? So for you, Adeli, you actually have a lot of things that you can use to measure out your goal and when it gets accomplished, but it's breaking that down a little bit more to set those goals because it can be really hard and it can be a lot of steps that you have to finish to be able to actually apply for graduate school, right? There's like transcripts, exams, especially for pre-vet school, right? A lot of your pre-vet schools
Yeah.
have prerequisites too.
Yeah, a lot of prereqs. So
Mhm.
I kind of use the SMART goal method because I am a bit familiar with this one.
Mhm.
So I use that to kind of make a deadline when I need to uh how do you call it? Take my exams for like the GRE, when I'll get
Mhm.
my test scores back to have that submitted to school. So I kind
Mhm.
of use the SMART goal method to do that. Now I'm gonna, use this method again to apply it to what schools I want to, or what graduate schools I potentially want to go to. So yeah.
Mhm. Great. Okay, that's fantastic. So some of the other pieces that other students identified for their SMART goals, just give me a second, is when it comes to some of the goals, it looks like a couple of of students identified passing the CPA exam. So their goal is to pass a section of CPA exam by October 15th by studying 2 topics per day on the weekends and doing practice tests after they cover all the material in the textbook. That's a great one. Very nice, very specific on here. At the end of each week is to set up an interview appointment for the Marriott Voyage program. Good luck with that. I know that right now that is can become sometimes a competitive program. So yes, that is a great one. And then another one is just a general one, which is stop procrastinating. So I think that can be a lot of students too. Yeah, and then it looks like, Cassie, you said that your goal is similar to the example. So you want to get an internship by next summer, and this would help you prepare for your major. So yeah, you definitely want to start identifying when you need to start accomplishing some of those pieces. So thank you, everybody, for sharing those goals. So for this workshop, I really just want to make sure that we're actually having you work on some things. I think a big thing about time management and goal setting is we say we're going to do it, and then we never do. So this workshop's kind of forcing you to kind of think a little bit about some of these goals that you might have in mind. All right, Denise,
We
can you
also
have you
have
share?
another goal in the chat. So Casey
Oh,
shared
yeah.
that her goal is similar to your example. She wants to get an internship by next summer, and that would help her prepare for her career, a career in her major. She'll
Yeah.
start researching them and applying in spring.
Yeah, definitely. So again, I appreciate those comments on there. So that's why I put internships on there. I keep having students asking me about internships and trying to find internships. So it's a pretty big one. All right, Denise, can I have you share our PowerPoint on here and kind of move on to the next couple of sections? So some other things to consider when it comes to goal setting is there are different types of goals. So there are short-term goals, midterm goals, and long-term goals. So when it comes to these different areas, it's important to evaluate where these goals kind of fit. So short-term goals are usually any goals that can be accomplished within a year or less. So these goals are specific achievements. So they can be anything from completing a course or organizing an event. So whatever your short-term goals are, they usually require some type of action now or in the near future. And then midterm goals are goals that can be accomplished in 1 to 5 years, like paying off a car loan, achieving a specific career level. And these goals usually require support, usually support some of your long-term goals. And then long-term goals, they represent usually like major targets or achievements. So these are things that can take up to 5 to 20 years to achieve. So examples of this could be graduating from Cal Poly, getting a career, developing personal relationships, traveling, financial security. So it's whatever you really want to accomplish in your life. These are just more larger milestones or important milestones for most people. So those are just some additional pieces when it comes to that. So next, we're going to move on to the next slide, Denise, to how to get it. So we already got a chance to talk about our goals and we filled out the Padlet. So thank you all for completing that. So we identified that when it comes to time management, there's 3 main pieces. So one piece is identifying what you want. So that's why we developed these goals. Now, the next piece is how do you get it? So time management is actually a way for us to be able to get and achieve the things that we want. So Denise, if we move on to the next slide, there are some things that you have to really consider when it comes to time management. So a big thing usually is do you have enough time to achieve your goals and how much time do you actually have to accomplish these? So the way that you can actually figure these pieces out is through planning and organizing your time. So usually there are different types of tools that you can use to be able to manage your time. And I'm sure all of you have used some of these in some way or other, but I think a lot of the times we get confused about which one is the best one for us. So part of what this kind of requires a little bit is to understand how each of these time management systems actually work and how they can help us. So planners or online tools really help you to stay organized with your time. If you've ever used an agenda in the past, I find that a lot of students like paper agendas to write down their tasks, to write down anything that they need to complete, anything that they need to accomplish, especially if you're more of like a hands-on kind of person. You usually like to write things out. But I would say a more efficient way is usually to automate things and to using an electronic calendar or an electronic planner. So if you use Canvas a lot for your classes, that's going to be a really helpful tool to be able to use to be able to map out some of the things that you need to do for your classes if your professor uses it. But it's a really great tool. But planners are a really efficient way to be able to manage your time. Other things to consider are to-do lists. So to-do lists are really helpful, but to-do lists only help us to get done what we need to do typically on a given day or in a given week. So to-do lists aren't really helpful to help us make decisions or to plan things out. It's mostly just a daily task list of things that you have going on. But usually weekly calendars are some of the things that I recommend the most for students to use. Weekly calendars help you break down things or assignments or priorities based on the day and based on the time, and you can actually chunk that time up and allot a specific time to them. So when it comes to time management, especially as a student, I would say weekly calendars are probably one of the more effective ways to use those. And then a to-do calendar or a to-do list is something you can manage on a daily basis to help you then manage the things that you have to get done. Monthly calendars are also helpful, but they only help us to identify important dates and deadlines happening for that specific month. And same thing with semester calendars. A semester calendar is going to give you a wide view of what you need to complete for that given semester and important deadlines. So all of these help you make decisions to figure out where your time is going and what you can do, but they're used in different ways. So you don't want to just rely on a semester calendar to figure out when you should write your essay and when you should map out time to write an essay. And you shouldn't use a to-do list to be able to help identify and plan anything that you need to schedule in the future. Really, they all work together and interconnected. So in the chat, I am going to recommend just some tools that you can actually use. So in one of the colleges, which is the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, they actually have a lot of fantastic resources that they share with their students on a variety of different time management tools and resources. So I'm just going to share my screen again so that I can share some of these resources. But essentially on their website, they actually have a lot of different categories of information. So some of the handouts that they have are how to study smarter, how to be more productive, how to read better, how to ace your tests, but they also have a separate section on here that is on how to manage your own calendar and even any other additional things that you maybe need to consider when it comes to time management. Maybe you have attention issues or can struggle with your focus. They do have some resources for students with ADHD as well. But one of the bigger recommendations that I would have for you all is using the time management reflection sheet and using the weekly action plan. So they actually have different handouts that you can review and you can download and you can apply and utilize. So definitely recommend some of the resources there for that. And thanks, Cassie. I use my Google Calendar for everything. I also use Outlook Calendar for everything as well. So it's really, I would say everyone is different, but one of the benefits of having an electronic calendar is the automation piece. If you can use your time more efficiently and not waste a lot of time trying to map stuff out into a written calendar, it's going to save you a lot more time. So these are some recommendations that I would give you as far as just some resources. So feel free to navigate, utilize the tool on here. They have a lot of great handouts. So definitely recommend that resource for students. So some of the next pieces then that we want to talk about when it comes to time management are just what it means when it comes to the time management process. So there is a process to managing your time, and it's a 5-step process. So usually the way that you can plan out your time is to first identify and brainstorm any tasks that you need to complete or get done for the week. Then the next step is to try to estimate how long it will take you to do each task. If you're not sure, you want to always overestimate versus underestimate. So for the group, in the chat, I'm just kind of curious to know, I think for a lot of students, coming back in person has been a big adjustment when it comes to time management and to have to rethink about time. So in the chat, if you can kind of tell me a little bit about how you feel like your time management has been coming back to person. Has it been difficult to come back, or has it been easy? So anything that's been difficult, you can, so we're going to kind of do a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 being, it's been difficult, and then 5 being, it's been easy. So in the chat, you can just put what number you feel you kind of identify at. Okay, so I'm seeing Jocelyn is seeing 5, so it's been really overwhelming to come back to campus in person with your time. I'm seeing a 4 on here, so it's been more of a challenge when it comes to time. Jocelyn, I'm curious, can you share a little bit about maybe what some of the struggles have been a little bit for you this semester when it comes to time?
I think because I live in Fullerton, so
Mhm.
commuting, going all the way to Pomona, it's a struggle for me. Especially, I don't drive. I have to commute all the way down there. And I'm
Mhm.
also working full time between working as a front desk and
Mhm.
going to school full time. So I think that's my struggle. I'm still trying to adjust. Like between the online, I think the accessibility between online is different.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that.
definitely. I feel the same way. Like, it's so easy to wake up and turn on your computer and be in class, right? You don't have to worry about brushing your teeth. You don't have to worry about taking a shower. You don't even have to worry about looking cute, right? Some people have their video off today. I get that. Like that, it can just be so easy and so convenient. But one of the things that we do have to do now is readjust to what actual life is like. So how long is it going to take me to commute, including traffic, including finding parking? I have to eat. So I have to plan out, like, when am I going to bring my lunch? Did I bring my lunch today? Did I pack it with me? I have to move to my other job. So it's making time to go to that, and then building in the time to do that, and just even looking okay, right? Hygiene part, got to take a shower, got to brush my teeth, got to, do all these other pieces. So I think the biggest thing that I would say with this semester is I would definitely overestimate the amount of time that you have to get anything done. If you're underestimating, that can be a problem. So Denise, if you can move on to the next slide, we can see that usually overestimating really allows you to avoid having a tight schedule. It can help you not miss deadlines. It can help you not feeling frustrated or like a failure. I have a lot of students that usually, because of how they set their time management, they end up not really setting themselves for success because they're constantly saying, like, look at all the things that I didn't get done for today. So part of it is having to be realistic with what you got. And it also helps you when you have to plan for unexpected things that come up. So for you, Jocelyn, I know you got to deal with traffic. So that's the big one. So it's like if someone gets into a car accident, someone, doesn't know how to get from point A to point B. Like, I know the first week of school for me, it was like nobody knew where they were going. So it just took extra time to find parking because it was just like, everyone was just trying to re-navigate the campus again. So a lot of that is kind of required. So a big recommendation I do really have is to overestimate your time. And I'm seeing a lot of people saying that they agree that this semester has been fairly stressful or kind of medium, right? It's an adjustment. And so we all have to kind of get readjusted back to campus life. So if we move on to the next slide, Denise, we can take a look at the third step when it comes to the time management stuff. So the next piece really has to do with priority. So we have to identify what items are important and how much time it is that you need to complete them by. So anything that is the most important, you want to make sure that you are putting that into your calendar first. And typically, most of the time, they have a specific due date. So if you have to pay your bills and you have to do it by a specific deadline, you have to get it done by that point. But if you have a general goal of time management or you want to work on developing your schedule, that's maybe not going to have as much of a high priority on your list compared to something that has to get done right away. So you want to think also about how long a task is going to take for you to complete. So if you have a class this semester, like let's say you're taking English and writing isn't your strongest area, and it's going to take you like 2 or 3 hours to write any type of essay, you need to block out time to be able to complete those assignments in an effective way. So that way you have enough time in your schedule to get the things done that you need to. So it's really important to rate each task and prioritize them based on their importance and based on any deadlines that they may have. And then the fourth step is to cross off the tasks. So anything that you finish, you want to cross it off and then add new ones. So once you complete a task, you can then the next day add on more items to complete on your to-do list. So the plan isn't to just stay busy all the time, but it's just to make sure that you're allotting time for things and then you are adding additional pieces as they come in and as they come up. And then the fifth step, Denise, if we click on it, we can evaluate. So I think a big thing that a lot of us don't do every day is actually evaluate how we are spending our time. So it's reflecting on our day. What priorities did we complete? Which ones didn't we complete? Do we need to take a look at our schedule? Do we need to make adjustments? Do we need to reevaluate things? I know for me, I got sick last week, so I had to make a whole schedule adjustment where the things that I had plans to hang out in the weekend couldn't do that. So then I had to move those plans to a different place. But it's making sure that you're making time to do that because we only have a set amount of time within a given day. So you always want to just be mindful that whatever you don't get accomplished today, you can move it to tomorrow, hopefully, and make adjustments for that. So those are some of the steps when it comes to time management. Denise, if we move on to the next slide, there are also some other recommendations that I would give you as well. So apps are really great. I love technology. I'm a big advocate of technology. Anything that's going to let me do things faster, quicker, easier, in less time, I'm going to always do because I'm a busy person and I'm always constantly working on things. So one of the great things is there's actually on one of the college's websites for North Carolina, Chapel Hill, they've actually come up with an app compendium. So the app compendium actually has a list of several different apps that you can identify and that you can use based on what your specific needs are. So you can actually filter it out. So if let's say you want to develop some type of study tools to help you with your studying management, it'll actually filter the apps out based on what you want to accomplish and what you want to achieve. If you want to become more productive, like with time management, you can identify that, and then it recommends some of these tools for you to help you be a little bit more productive. So there's priorities app, there's a schedule planner app, they even have a workflow app that helps you with your time management task system. And then there's even an Unstuck app that helps you identify what are some of the things that might be getting in the way of you not being able to accomplish your goals. And then they also have one called Wonderlust that help you manage your tasks from your phone to your tablet to your computer. So you can use this like all across the board and have it show up on your list here. So I highly recommend some of these. So feel free to kind of take a look at any ones that fit your needs. But I do recommend checking out some of those resources. And then Denise, if we can share the PowerPoint again, we can kind of take a look at some of the next pieces. So usually when we come up with time management, there's a process to it, but not all of us are perfect. So usually when we don't have good time management, then if you click on the next slide, Denise, procrastination is usually what kicks in. So if we don't manage our time efficiently, if we don't manage our time effectively, this is when we start getting to the last minute of just working on anything and trying to get whatever we can done with the time that we have left. So time management and planning out your time is going to really help avoid procrastination and avoid a lot of the stress with procrastination. I will 100% admit I was a master procrastinator when I was a student here at Cal Poly. I could get away with writing a 14-page essay like 5 or 6 hours before it was due, including research, but I was always left very stressed, not really understanding a lot of the content and just feeling like I was constantly under pressure and didn't have control of my time. So it kind of finally hit a point where I got into my upper division classes and I was like, well, can't get away with this anymore. So then I had to start making some changes. And so usually, and I'm assuming that's why you're here too, is you're trying to find a balance between school and work and life. And so that's how time management is hopefully going to help you with that. If we click onto the next slide, these are my recommendations as far as things that can help prevent procrastination. A big thing is try not to blow the task out of proportion. So it's really easy to make something easy complicated. So a lot of the times, if you are looking at a task and blowing it up to bigger proportions, it's going to make it harder to want to start it. versus just taking at least one baby step towards that. And that's really one of the important things is you want to take at least one baby step towards at least accomplishing it. So if your goal is like, I'm going to run or I'm going to exercise today, just take your exercise shoes out and take it out from your closet, from wherever you have it. Just leaving it out can just be a good step to just helping you like get into that mindset of accomplishing that goal. So even with studying, just taking your books out of your backpack or putting your laptop, and setting it up can be just a good way to start, or even sitting down at your desk. That can be like a baby step to help you studying. And then with the next piece is start usually with the hardest task at the beginning of the day, because that's usually when we have more focus and more motivation. And then the last thing is usually just finish it. A lot of the times we procrastinate, we get distracted by things, but if we can finish it, complete it, it's one less thing off of your list that you have to worry about, and you can move on to anything else that you want to do. So sometimes that can also occupy time in our mind as well. So on the next slide, we can take a look at the final step when it comes to time management. So balance is the biggest thing that I've heard from most of you all about what you want from your time management. So the way that we can identify a successful time management and efficient time management is through balance. So if we click on the next slide, a key thing that I would recommend for everyone is to think about what's important to you. So in the chat, you can identify what you feel that is the most important for you, but essentially you want to think about what your most important values are and then identify those. So for me, one of my most important values are my family and my friendships. So those are things that I really want to make time for and that I really want to make sure I'm able to do. When I was in college, though, school was a big priority for me. So it was school, work, and my family. So it's really important to identify what is important to you and what you want to gauge. And then the next step on the next slide, you can click on it, is to then actually schedule time for those things. So if you want to spend more time with family, you have to block out time for that. If you want to focus time on your work or your career, you have to identify time for that and prioritize those. So when you're creating your schedule, identify those first, build in time for those first, and then everything else you just kind of fill in as like after pieces. So that way, when you're creating your schedule, you're not overloading yourself with something where you're doing all the things that you don't want to do in your life, and all the things that you want to do are never getting done because they're always put in the back burner because you're never doing them. So you want to make sure that you're prioritizing these pieces. That's really how balance and success happens, is through scheduling and making time for these things that are important. Because as a student, you have multiple roles. Most students aren't just students. They're a brother, they're a sister, they're a mother, they're a father, they're an employee. There are multiple pieces to our personality. So in order to find happiness, we have to build in time for that. And if we're not doing that, we're not going to feel happy with our schedule, because all we're doing is prioritizing spending time on things that we don't want to do. So that's a big thing that I would recommend when it comes to balance, is when you're creating your schedule, really making time for those. So with all that in mind, again, today we talked a little bit about time management. We talked about the importance of knowing what you want. We've talked about the importance of how to get it, which is through time management. And then we talked about creating a successful schedule by actually balancing out our priorities, our values, and making time for those. So hopefully today you were able to learn something and able to apply some of these pieces. There's another there's another worksheet that I would recommend also when it comes to developing balance when it comes to your schedule. I'm going to put that into the chat. But it is called the Tips and Tools, or the Wheels of Life. So this worksheet actually helps you identify what are some priorities and what areas of your life you're satisfied in or not satisfied in. And then you can identify anything that you maybe want to work towards changing or achieving. So I highly recommend that you utilize this worksheet to help you identify some of these pieces. So that really concludes our workshop for today. Do we have any questions before we finish this up, or any comments?
That was really helpful, Julie. Can we give Julie like a thumbs up or a reaction, a clap? And oh, thanks, Jocelyn. I see some people clapping. This was recorded too, so if you want to go back and review any of these tips that Julie shared, any of the links, You'll be able to find that on you can go to your different programs, so Arches, Polytransfer, Bronco Scholars, Ramp, EOP, to access that, and also to access the resources that she shared out.
Yeah, I would also highly recommend that if any of you are struggling with any of your time management, go back to your programs. That's what Arches is here for. That's what EOP is here for, what Ramp is here for. So you can always work with an advisor to hopefully help you develop some of these skills and to get some support with it. But I'll definitely include a lot of these links to some of these worksheets just because I think they can be helpful. So thank you everyone for attending today.
I also posted a link in the chat. So if you can please complete our survey, that lets us know what kind of workshops y'all want to see so that we can put those on in the future to make sure we're answering and addressing any questions that you may have. All right, thank you all.
Did you say the survey would be required to do, or you don't have to?
No, if you can do it, that'd be great.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.